Hello again. In the previous video, we started coding out a solution for the bar chart challenge. And if you remember, we have this object with key value pairs, and the object is to render it as a bar chart in the UI, in the DOM. Previously, we explored some ways to get our high watermark, and what I mean by that is make sure that we aren't just using a magic number for the far side of the bar chart, right? We need a way to contain it a little bit. And so we went through and explored a bunch of those. Today, in this video, we're going to keep going by finishing this and getting something rendering in the preview, in the DOM. We can do that right here. I'm going to comment these out because we don't need these comments anymore. And if we look at the HTML really fast, we will see that, yeah, it has a single div with an ID of root. That's where we're going to put all of our stuff, so we can do that really fast. Const root equals document dot. We could use query selector. I'm going to use get element by ID just for something different today. You could do it any way that's comfortable for you. Today I'm using root, okay? So get element by ID is root, and in here we are going to loop over our object and render a line for each one of these items, okay? So similar thing to above where we have that for. We could go for let key in word frequencies. I still have that in my clipboard, thank you. And way down here, we are going to append something to the root. So root append child, and it's going to be something. It's going to be an element called wrapper. It's not going to be an element that's actually called wrapper in the DOM. That's just what we're calling it here. So we need that const wrapper equals document dot create element. Very old school way of doing it. There we go. We've created that div. I'm going to copy this a couple times because I want a couple things in here, and of course my indenting didn't quite work. I want another div for the bar. Okay, I'm going to call that meter. And then I want something else for the caption, okay? Because the bar by itself won't have any words in it. So we need a little bit of accessibility, and that will happen through the caption. So starting with the bar, the meter, just like this, meter.set attribute. Whoops, learn to type. There we go. I'm going to set the ID to be whatever the key is. That part, not so important, but good practice to toss an ID on there just so that you have something unique that you can link into if you needed to in the future. So we're going to do that. We're also going to add some classes. So class list.add, like this. And we're going to add the class of meter. Okay. Meter.style.something. So we're going to set a property on here, and that property is going to be whatever our math is. So we have this number, our bar max, which currently is 30 based on this number, okay? So it rounds up to 30, and we're going to use that math to get a percentage, okay? 29 divided by 30 times 100 gives us our percentage. That's where we want to live, okay? So we do that right here. I'm actually going to use a custom CSS property. So just like this, percentage. And over here, it needs to be a string because we want it to end in percent. Sometimes you might have something different, but today I want it to end in percent, so that is where we live, okay? Now, that math is like this. It is that word frequencies. Where is it? I need to grab that. So that word frequencies key, which gives us the value, okay? We get the value and we divide by our maximum number, which is bar max, capital letter, bar max. And then we multiply by 100, okay? And that will give us a percentage. So at this point, we have some sort of a percentage being funneled into this percentage custom property. And now we can attach it. So wrapper dot append child like this, meter, okay? The caption. Let's get the caption done really fast. That one's actually a little bit easier. So caption dot append. The difference between append and append child is that append, whatever you pass in here will be displayed as a string. So if you try to put markup inside of this append, then you'll actually be able to see the markup. It won't mean anything. It'll interpret it as if it were a string, okay? So you need to be very careful about what you do in here, but we can totally get that done. So $key appears word frequency times, just like this. So I'm going to grab this one, copy it, bring it down. Word frequency times. Did I do that right? Key appears, word frequency, key times. I think that's right. Okay. Moving on, we append that the same way that we did before. So append child to caption. Sorry, not to caption. We're putting caption in wrapper, and then we run it. And in theory, if we've done this right, we get something displaying. We get a bunch of strings. We don't see any sort of display because we don't have any CSS, right? So at the very least, if CSS is broken, we see something, which means that we're in a good place. We're also seeing test in here again. We will take care of that soon enough. Do not worry. For now, I'm going to ignore it, okay? So CSS, let's go get some. Right down here. And I'm going to go meter. I'm going to set a width of 100% like this, a height of 25 pixels, a border radius of 25 pixels, brilliant, and a background image, okay? That background image is not going to be a URL, it's going to be a linear gradient. So this is going to let us strategically pick those two things. We want it to go to the right because we're going left to right, okay? So we're going to set that up. We're going to set the first color as teal. We're going to make this so that we can change it later on, but for now, teal. And if I run all this, it should show up right like this. Not useful at all. Let's go and add some numbers. The first is going to be our percentage, okay? So -- percentage, put a default in there just because we can. That should actually give us something a little bit more variant. Yep, getting close. The way that we get hard lines is by setting silver to 0. So 0 will be all the way back here because it is to the left of whatever this break is. It's going to create a nice hard line. So if we run this again, we get this. Looking pretty good. I mean, we could probably go home at this point because that's exactly what we're hoping for, right? We could make this white or style it. We could do a bunch of stuff. Let's go further though, okay? So the first thing that I want to do is I want to clean up our markup because it's all just kind of sitting in here. So I'm going to grab all of this and just comment it out so that we don't lose track of stuff. And I'm going to create a new function. This function is going to be called render bar, okay? We will get some arguments in a second, but for now, we go right here, clean it up just a little bit, and return that wrapper, okay? So what we've done is we've extracted it all, and we are going to call that from within here. But we need to get a few things. For instance, we need to get a name, which is going to be our key. We need to get a value, whatever the number is. And of course, we need to get that max, okay? So key is in a few places. We can go and grab this, multiple cursors for the win. We rename that to name. Word frequencies right here if I can grab all of this, I can rename it to value, and then this one just becomes max, okay? At which point I can use that. So render bar, and we are passing in all this good stuff. So the first one is key, the second one is that value, and the last one is bar max, okay? If I run this, hopefully nothing breaks. There was a little bit of a flash as it re-rendered, which means that we are in good shape. But now we can actually start changing some of this stuff. And what I mean by that is this block of code right here is kind of hard to read, right? You can see some divs in there. You kind of have to read through the attributes. It would be nice if it was more HTML-like, right? So let's do that. I'm going to hide this just like this. And down below, I am going to, instead of return, I'm just going to return a string, okay? Inside of here is going to be, not that, sorry. It's going to be a div, a closing div, just like this. Inside of there is going to be a div. This is going to be our meter. So just like that. Second div, this one is going to be our caption, just like that. So the meter has some things. We have ID equals whatever our name is. Brilliant. And we also have a class, so we can go and do that. Class equals meter, because we didn't do anything special there. And then of course style equals -- property, percentage, like this. And that is going to be whatever that math is. So it's going to be right here. Just grab all of that, copy it down, paste it in, and add a % behind it, okay? So that's the bar. Down here we have the caption. We can actually just grab that line completely. We don't need to change anything about that, so that can go there. But the nice thing is now we could start wrapping this up. So I could put right here, wrapping the name in code just to give it a bit of a different style, right? If I run this, this is going to break, okay? You'll see it break. It will scream because a pen child expects a node. It expects an element, not a string. And what we did was we passed it a string. So we need to do something else. I'm going to copy and paste this, comment it out, paste it down here, and we're going to change this to insert adjacent HTML. Insert adjacent HTML takes 2 arguments. So I need something right out front, and then whatever my string is. And that string will be rendered as HTML. That's what we're saying here, HTML, okay? The first argument is a placement. So you can go either just before the element in question, just inside, but after, right? So after the beginning, before the beginning, after the beginning, and then before the end and after the end. So it gives you 4 places to put this content. For us, we want it just before the end because we want it to always be, we want the next one to be underneath the last one, okay? So this is going to be before end, like this. And if I hit run on this, we should be back to normal, which we totally are. But now we can see the markup, right? Now it looks pretty cool. We have some control over it. In fact, I want to clean this up even further because none of this is semantic except for maybe code, right? We just have random divs in here. So let's go changing this out. Let's go change this out, sorry. The first one is going to be here. We're going to set that to a figure, which wraps that up really nice. Our caption is going to be a fig caption, okay? Just like that. And then this, the actual display. Well, if I haven't given it up yet, we are going to call it meter, okay? So meter, just like this, it closes out. And if we do this, it is going to break again, okay? The reason it's going to break is because these styles don't really mean anything anymore. The way that meter works is it expects a value. It should get some sort of a max property, attribute, sorry, a max attribute. Could also get a minimum attribute, and then some other ones like optimal and high and low and stuff like that. But for us, we can actually clean this part right out and watch how clean this gets. So that max, it's going to be whatever the max is. Brilliant. That's nice and easy. And then the value is just going to be whatever the value is, okay? So we don't have to do any of that math anymore. That math is done for us. The browser is doing that work for us, right? Based on the value, based on the math, based on the max, it's going to do the math for us to get that done. So if I run this, it's going to look a little bit ugly, but it still works. So we can see how it creates it for us and does all the work. Now we can style this up, right? We need to update some CSS, and I'm going to do that right down here. So I'm going to leave .meter in there, even though it's not doing anything anymore. I'm going to go and target meter itself, okay? So width 100%, height 25, just like this. If I run that, we should get something kind of ugly. There we go, starting to look okay. Again, the green is the default in the browser. We can change this a little bit. And here's where things get a little bit funky because each browser has their own way of setting this up, okay? So the first is meter. We're going to attach something to meter. It's going to be WebKit because that's for Safari and Chrome. Meter bar, okay? We're going to put some stuff in there. Down here, we're going to have another one. Whoops, not a double dash, just a single dash. There we go. WebKit dash meter dash optimum value. That's a mouthful, but there it is. And then below that, we are going to get something for Firefox. It is going to be dash moz dash meter dash optimum. Whoops. Optimum, just like that. And on here, we have another one called dash moz dash meter dash bar. So quite a bit of stuff going on here. In fact, there's going to be a lot of repeating code in here. There are some ways around it, but we can't really put these together. And the reason that we can't do that, like if I wanted to put a comma behind this and have these work together, right? This would not work because if any one of these selectors fails, the entire rule fails. Okay, that's important to remember. If any one of these selectors fails, the entire rule fails. So because the Mozilla selector will fail in Chrome and Safari, this will be ignored. Because the WebKit selector will fail in Firefox, this entire rule will be ignored. So we need them to be separate, okay? I also need to type moz right, there we go, for Mozilla. And now we can start setting this up. So getting into the code, we need a couple things. First off, we need to update the background, okay? The background is going to have some sort of that color. It's going to be, yeah, we'll set it to dash background color. I didn't update that over here, though I meant to. And the default will be silver, okay? We're going to grab that. In fact, we're going to add one more here for border radius. The border radius is going to be 25 pixels because that's what we've been doing. And we can copy this all the way down to the meter bar, okay? So we're putting it in here. There we are, okay? As a helpful thing for Chrome gets a little bit funky here for a second, so we need an extra height in here. We're going to sneak that one in. But now, I'm just going to grab this background for a second, place it down here, whoops, not like that. and update these two things. So the first one is going to be to change this to color, and our default is teal. Okay. And then to finish it out, for whatever reason, we need that border radius of 25 in here. So a lot of repeating code. I'm sure that there are ways to clean this up a little bit, but because of these prefixes, it gets a little bit weird. But if I run this, it should look pretty close. I am missing something. What am I missing? Border radius. Right, I am missing the border radius from here as well. So border radius of 25. Run it one more time. And now we have this really cool setup. So the nice thing about using meter is that we get these separate pieces. So we're actually able to round the inside of this as well. Whereas before it was a hard line because of the way the gradient works. Now we're able to round this out. And the nice thing there is that if I wanted to, I could take silver and update it to transparent, run this again, and it would look just like a bar graph. Okay, we could start steering some of this stuff around, layering it or doing whatever we wanted to, but it's starting to look very much like a chart. Okay, now there are a couple things that I want to take care of. For instance, this test, right? That absolutely doesn't belong in there. So let's go and clean some stuff up. The way that we do that is by moving this, okay? So I'm gonna grab this, comment it all out, paste one more time down here. We don't need anything else inside of here, so we can get rid of that. But we're gonna change to a for of, okay? For of loops over arrays, not objects. Of is for arrays, in is for objects, okay? Which means that this no longer works because this is an object. We need to convert it to an array. So we're going to get a little bit sneaky right here. Object.entries. And what object.entries does is it converts the object into a series of arrays. Each array item is an array that has the name and the value, or the key and the value, okay? So we can destructure that by grabbing that key and over here that value, which means that now we can update this to just be value, okay? And if I do that, this test should go away. Let's check. Excellent, okay? So that's it. That's what we've done. We have come a long way. In the previous one, we found out what our high water mark was, right? We figured that out so that this goes almost all the way to the end. Otherwise, it would sit somewhere over here and everything would look really tiny. Not really a great look. So we found that max, right? That maximum number. And then from there, we started playing around with how to render it. We started with something a little bit old school by creating all those elements, sandwiching them all together using a pen child and making that work, okay? Right down here. In fact, we started even before the render function, we started down here, okay? And then of course we extracted that to a render function and refactored it. First starting just with the divs and then removing the divs so there wasn't a div soup, divitis, whatever you want to call it. Using some better semantic markup, including meter, which does the work for you. So you pass in that max, you pass in the value, and everything else happens automatically, okay? There are so many more ways to keep working on this. I could probably spend another whole video just talking about different ideas for taking this into a web component or maybe doing it with SVG or all kinds of stuff. But for a challenge, I think that this is pretty good and it's in really good shape. If we tried to add something, it would just automatically work where we have everything that we need. And if we needed to move stuff around, right, we have the fig caption, we have the item in question, right? We could keep working on this. So hopefully a lot of accessibility built into this and a lot of flexibility built into this. Would you have done it a different way? I definitely want to hear. So please hit me up in those comments. Let me know what you think, and I will respond. Looking forward to what you create or what you think about this. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.